monsters actually have to enter the room.
No, if I throw it at a square, I can just still hit with AoE.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna take an aggressive stance so that if I do hit, it'll probably destroy her.
Right, it does more damage. But
maybe I want to just declare a favored use of fighting with grenades at this point.
You probably do, and go ahead and reroll a d8.
Alright, wrote that down. Hey, that's a lot better, isn't it?
That is a hit, because I have no one to hide behind.
That is 6 damage. 2 more for aggro stance.
Wow, I don't think I could soak all of that.
I'd be surprised.
Ah!
A small nuclear bomb goes off in the room, and...
that's 5 points of damage. Okay.
Oh, that is ugly.
The bomb is going to go off, and she's going to collapse. But then she's going to lift herself up with one of her 3 arms and go, "No! Wait! Please! Don't kill me!" she says in Japanese.
Okay. Why not?
I like it. So yeah, choice. Kill. Why not?
What does she say?
You don't know the truth. Your entire civilization is built on a lie.
What?
Okay. Continue.
Somewhere in the background you hear Karasu go, "Roleplay, you nerd!"
The story that you've heard of the great founders of Cartesia, it's not true. We're not, it's not, that we wanted to kill all the surface dwellers. We're just people like you. We deserve to see the sun as much as the rest of you and to reap the rewards of this beautiful world.
There's only enough room on this planet for one of us. Sword drop.
No, don't you want to see the alternate ending?
No, because you can only see one ending per playthrough.
So, do you do a finishing move?
Yeah.
Alright.
She's giving me the mole man argument, and we all know you can either only have mole men or regular people, and I choose regular people.
I love your logic.
Humans and crab people? Maybe. But mole people? Snake people? No.
When we animate this later, we'll have a better speech then. You can only have regular people or mole people.
No, you see, she gives that speech and then it's like time stop, right? And you have the weird thought bubble come up and like mole people come up out of the ground and try to live with normal people and it doesn't work out and she's like, that's her face goes cold. It's like, no, it can only be regular people or mole people.
Mole people. And we'll have to do the vignetting where we can't, there's a dark mark over your eyes, but we can still see your mouth, and that's when you'll have to lift your sword. Alright. That will allow everyone to acquire the demonic monad.
Da da da.
Which is a special.
Jesus.
Which can be redeemed for more monads, but is also a special quest item and may have purposes later on.
Ooh. I need to take that and click use on everything with it.
Okay. Now, this, the quest has been completed, but the dungeon has not been emptied. So you have the option to leave the dungeon or keep wandering around.
Wait, was that a boss or was that a mini-boss?
That was the boss.
Oh, because you said that she referred to the other guy as her boss, and you told me that guy was a mini-boss.
Oh, I must have misspoke myself. I did mention she had a crown above her head.
I did not hear that part.
Okay, so she was a boss. You've defeated a boss monster.
Okay.
We just incidentally took the most efficient route.
So our quest is complete, right?
The quest is complete, but you don't have to leave the dungeon instance if you don't want to. It's do you guys want to keep fighting or do you want to finish the quest?
Well, my character, he's a police officer.
Oh, and also you're decharmed. The charm ends now that she's dead.
Yeah, and I get my
my
levels
character
back.
will be. since the quest is over, my character will be like, "Hey, that was fun fighting with you guys, but I'm gonna leave."
I gotta log out.
Well, I mean, sorry to say this, from a double standpoint here. In character, there would be a reason to get more loot, money, and XP, right?
Yeah.
And on the other half, on a metagame level, we are here to test mechanics, right?
Right. I mean, it's a question of whether you guys want to keep doing fighting stuff or if you want to do RP stuff.
Oh, okay. I mean,
for me, like, out of like whatever,
Right.
I need to get going.
Okay.
Right, now's the time to wrap up then.
Right. It's actually probably a good to wrap up because we've already lost 2 people.
Yeah.
And I think we have a lot of notes. Okay, because I can.
Sorry.
I
was
can already
talking,
see-
but I was talking over something that stops you guys from hearing me. Quests. Quests,
Yeah.
will they just give level soaks when you complete them, or will they give you gifts?
They will give you level soaks and in-game loot.
Okay.
So,
So we
So-
leveled up from this.
so the good news is you all level up. You are now all level 4.
Okay.
Very good.
I had a comment about the healer avatar thing.
Yeah.
It has no tactics.
Okay, that needs to be changed. The
It has
class
fighting
needs
and
to be
shooting
changed.
for some reason, but it has no tactics. That was a note that I was making.
Thank you. Yeah, this and also I think the grenadier needs to be buffed too.
I don't think it's that. Well, maybe, but the thing is that like everyone else got increased defense because of the backline support gift with defensive dodge, and everyone taking the defense action, which is what they should be doing with it. But yeah, now I don't have a thing to like catch up and equalize on that.
And also, no, I hope you felt like you were effective because I noticed you were pretty effective because you were taking guys out.
I was still effective. I was just rolling poorly half the time comparatively.
Right.
It did have D12s, but that only affected like maybe a quarter of the rolls.
Right, and I also like it's the question of I don't want to have everyone feel like they're nerfed, like they can't do anything at all, but I also don't want somebody to have a clear advantage, and so right. So usually I think one of the better ways to handle AoE people is I think a good AoE attacker, it should be highly random whether they're effective or not, because your AoE, if you can hit 3, 4, or 5 guys and randomly take one of them out, you're still effective.
Right, I'm still doing something each turn and making progress on the whole.
Right, and it does mean that when there's only one boss, like there's only one target, your effectiveness drops. But I think that's probably a trade-off we're going to want in the character class. That it's just like, well, dude, you're better at lots of people and not as good at boss fights.
Yeah,
But I don't want you to
comparatively,
feel-
like the last time we did a monster mash, I had definitely more dice because I was aiming and I could clear entire rooms with a single hit. And
Right.
that's definitely probably over the goal, and this is definitely underneath the goal.
Right. So
So equalizing the two will definitely give it more of a 50-50 chance every time I kind of try to do it.
oh, go ahead.
I had another note that I don't know if this is just my observation, maybe it has more of a mechanical thing that makes it work out better. I had a note here that the back and forth D12s from the stances seemed to make combat last longer for no real effect.
Right, more
Okay,
misses, less action, I guess, is what
that seems to be a note that you've got, sure, but we got through some pretty large fights.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, is that it seemed like just adding on D12s just for... I don't see what the point of that was, because if there was if those D12s weren't there, I think combat would have gone through faster.
Well, the couple reasons. First of all, I got rid of range penalties. Okay, did you notice I wasn't applying those?
Yes.
Okay.
Right,
so
that's what I'm saying. There would have been situational D12s that would have still existed in the... I'm not bringing up old rules or anything. I'm just bringing up what I saw happening, and it just didn't seem like those were doing anything other than making combat last longer.
It creates backline versus frontline.
Does it though? Because I think slower movement from being like defensive stance creates a back line, whereas aggro moving faster creates a front line.
Well, another purpose is if you're aggressive, okay, in an aggressive stance, you can get a D12 bonus to attack, and you can also prevent people from moving. Whereas if you're defensive, remember I said some of these guys who are defensive. Also, when you're defensive, you can't counter. So you have to choose, do you want to be aggressive and countering, or do you want to be defensive and roll an extra D12? So you're right, it makes the combat last longer because it boosts your dodge. And we gave it specifically to classes that we wanted to be good dodge character classes, like the lobbers, and not
And the Grenadier, who basically only took 1 damage despite like 5 attacks.
Right. So I agree it makes the combat last longer, but I'm not convinced that's a what happened was you neutralized their D12 because when you got into melee range with the lobbers have a problem now because when you're aggressive and in their face, if they try to walk away from you, you get to hit them. You get to attack them. If they try to missile attack you while you're in their face and aggressive, they don't get that D12 on the attacks. They only get on the defenses. So they had a problem where as soon as you got up to them and were aggressive, you could neutralize them.
Well, like that's why I started with saying it's just an observation I was having. If there was a mechanical backside to it that I just wasn't observing, that's fine.
I mean, yeah, like I observed it myself because I'm the backline character, and the Chargers like came up on me and surrounded me. I had to make that choice.
Right. So you saw that, yeah. When the Chargers got to you, and you were a backline guy, you saw, oh no, I'm getting hammered. And then on my side, the lobbers were a lot more dangerous when they could get the D12s, and they were harder to hit when they had a front line, when they had all those guys in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can shoot all day and we've got a bonus D12. You'll never hit us. But after you kill their front line and then walk up to them and start and lock them against the wall, yes, their D12s made them harder to hit. But when their turn comes around, they were screwed because if I walk away, you get a free hit, and if I attack you, you can counterattack me. And it got them into that mold. So no, I think that was working correctly as designed. I think that worked pretty good. If anything, I think a problem, I'm not sure if it's a problem or not, but when it comes to combat, I haven't got the damage balance to the point where some of the bad guys can survive, can soak damage.
Speaking of damage, I had another note. Is there going to be any additional differences made between the different armors at any point? Because I don't know that speeds matter much when it comes to the size of the soaks that some of the armors get.
As the range character, I don't mind that I'm restricted in movement. I'm fine with having a whole ton of soak and just sitting back and having to range penalty.
Yeah, I do want to go back to the outfits that give like situational bonuses, like ninja outfits that give bonuses to stealth.
Well, I mean, there is a thing in almost all MMOs called enchantments that you could just put on armors. But I mean, yeah, right. I like having heavy armor. I don't mind being burdened.
And also there will I'm not sure how much I want to invest in this. There's something called proofs, which were mentioned in the book, which is if someone hits you with an elemental attack and you're proof against if you're proof against that proc, you negate the +2. And in earlier drafts we had like fireproof armor and iceproof armor that if someone hit you and you were fireproof, you just didn't care.
Right.
And but I didn't do a lot of the loading on armors right now with the proofs, but I would like to go ahead and put those in the game, but I didn't do that immediately. Also, I want to debate the pros and cons of doing that, because when I talk to people of modern games, elemental matching doesn't seem to be a thing people enjoy either in tabletop or computer games.
Well, usually like in WoW and everything, it's mostly boss fights. Like, you need to spend time building a set versus, like, anti-cold damage or something, because this boss does all cold damage, and if you go into a fight without it, you're going to die. There's not a choice.
Right.
So you have to build up to specific, like, raid bosses.
Right. So yeah, if we're going on a raid boss game, right, and I haven't implemented those features yet, because I wanted to make sure the core mechanics were working a little better. I was hoping that this whole stance thing was with aggressive and defensive. I hope it made people feel like they knew where they were standing and what they were doing.
Yeah.
So I hope that worked a little. I can already see a couple things we need to tweak a little bit.
I mean, the other notes I got is just things we talked about, like countering a move, countering people moving, whatever we're calling that. Should include shields, I think.
I think now one of the things I worry about a little bit is having shields be a flat bonus D8. Okay, ruins the symmetry a little bit when I try to make my bad guys have all D6s, all D8s, or all D10s.
Well, you could have different levels of shield and then have the shields different availabilities. So that way...
Plus one shield, it has a D10 instead of a D8.
Or just start your shields off at like a D4 and then a +1 shield is a D6 and so forth. So that your D4 baddies are still threatening and I don't feel as secure behind a D8 shield.
That's one possibility. Because, right, but in which case this means that you players are just going to go ahead and get the D8. Another thing to do.
That's why I said availability, because also the shield provides the cover bonus, so any other dice I have from a naturally built character will also have the chance to go above your D6.
Right. So that's one reason why we changed the reeling bonus in the game is no longer a flat D8. It's called blindsided, and it's your tactic skill.
Or you could always add a gift that increases die size of shields, and again start the shield low and make the character build up their shield.
And I'm thinking people like the fact that the shield is a dodge bonus. They like the fact that it's not. Although I think we should bring back a gift that can make a shield armor as well. So
I mean, it's why you're seeing me dodge instead of countering all the time. I wanted to have a tank.
Yeah, as opposed to the other build.
Well, I wanted to have a tank that ran up and countered all the time because I was going to plan to never attack on my turn, but always counter. That's why I wanted the Futu when it was still the weapon to be my main weapon because that was the counter weapon. But now that I'm not doing that and I see these guys are attacking me, it's like, well, shit, I have a better chance of dodging and have the cover and all that, so I'll just cover all the time.
Right, and while I'm thinking that what we need to do is make the shield a better countering weapon, which I think will solve that problem. Like if the shield had a reason to counter with it.
Right, yeah, I don't know. Spike shield?
Or just shield bashing, right. With the logic being that you're both blocking and doing damage against your attackers. Right now, the shields don't do a lot of damage, but that's something to rethink. I mean, there are a couple of major reasons to get rid of reeling. As much as I like reeling as a mechanic, it was breaking a couple other things. Now that we say, look, either you're in aggressive mode and you're allowed to counterattack, or you're in defensive mode, and you're getting a bonus D12 to all your dodges. And now it's a question of, do I want to be a DPSer and be in aggressive mode, or do I want a higher dodge and get missed more often? And that's why I wanted those two stances in there as a clear choice, because players forget that they're reeling. And also, I'm looking at this from a GM side. Like, one thing that worries me about the game is that I'm very good about remembering that my monsters are aggressive or defensive and using these different stances. But I've seen other games like this. And if I had to remember these monsters are aggressive and these monsters are defensive, I might have problems with that as a GM.
You have a lot more to keep track of now.
Right. And so there's ways around that. I've seen miniatures games like this, like especially Descent. Like Descent is a miniatures game where the players had options to be aggressive or defensive, but I noticed that when it was the GM's turn, they said, GMs, look, your monsters just move and attack. That's all they do. They move, they attack. That's all they do.
I mean, if you wanted to compare it to a miniatures game, just use one of Hey, back to Star Wars. The Star Wars minigames, they have these little round bits that you put right underneath your icon thing, and they have little things that keep track of what the condition of your ship is on.
Right, and there's also ways to keep track of it. You know, because you can keep track of hit points. We can keep track of auras and dots, which we haven't set up yet, but we could do that. It's possible to track. The thing that worries me about it is game master complexity, because when I talk to people about the games that we play, I often get GMs telling me, I have a problem challenging my players. They just seem to keep blowing through my encounters. And I talk to them a little bit, and from what I can gather is, you know, a player is got one character and they've got it maxed out because you guys want to be awesome. So you've got your character mix, you've got your tactics, and you're doing all sorts of tactical stuff. You have one guy, and you're thinking about that. The GM has to think about all of the monsters, and even if the GM is reasonably good at tactics, they might not be, they're not player characters. They're not built for this, and also this fight might be, with goblins. The next fight might be, with kobolds, and the next fight after that might be with slimes. Each monster is going to have a different tactical setup, and layout, and different tactics of the way it works. If a GM can't, some GMs will be able to wrap their brains around it. Like, I can do this. I'm a fan of, you notice I deliberately made the terrain vary in this, and I deliberately set the monsters up like the floor guy is in the correct spot. Those floor guys, you guys just took a different path. So, I deliberately, I can handle this. But if the way the game is set up, it's like you need to be really, really good at tactics to make the game feel challenging to players. You're going to have a problem where if a game master isn't good at tactics, then the battles are going to feel pretty, weak. And so, but the other, it's the thing I worry about as a designer. The flip side of that is try to design the game to be tactics proof. But if you design it that there are no tactics at all, then you run into the risk of, this is just bullet sponge.
It's sort of the dragon problem, where you can play the dragon really well, where he flies around in the air and never lets anyone touch him and just breathes fire until the group is dead. Right. Or the one that just fights to the death on the ground in players' reach and never runs away.
Right, because I'm unsatisfied with dragon fights on the ground. It annoys me when, why are these monsters? If I'm
why are these hyper intelligent, age-old monsters of power that strike fear into the hearts of everyone getting beaten down like punks?
And the thing that annoys me with that is it ruins. I know we talk about this being a virtual reality environment, but this is going to change in a little bit, and there's hints that there's more to it. And if the bad guys are constantly doing stupid stuff, it doesn't feel realistic to me. Why are they just standing there and dying? So it's something to think about. Like on the other hand, this is a virtual reality game, so I can excuse a lot of the stuff that the monsters do. So the purpose behind the stances was, and also so I could tell you, I like the fact that you guys immediately adapted to, okay, that's an aggressive line, and they get free strikes at me if I try to go past them. Let's have the bomber come in here, and then let's have Awen, who gets 4 attacks, come in here and deal with them. And then we can go ahead and break through. And I like the fact that it felt like you were immediately absorbing the attacks. I think the character classes do need to be retooled if this is going to stay.
I need notes that you can't use skills for soaking, or favorite uses for soaking, rather.
Still no magic classes at the moment. I imagine you're still working on those, aren't you?
No one really. Yeah,
they exist.
I think they need to be tweaked.
You removed the magic from the healer class. That was something I noticed.
And I also removed the Imperator class because it was doing a lot of elemental damage. And like I said, the response I'm hearing from playtesters is elemental damage is not, all that interesting. So, and plus the fact that we have all these procs in the new draft, like you saw, there's a proc for every skill in the game, and that was designed so I wanted to have one damage system. Like you saw the charm attack there. The charm attack is, look, it hits you, but instead of killing you, it charms you. And also people might say, well, wait a minute, why does something damage me and then charm me? Shouldn't I, get a saving throw against this or something? And we said, oh, you do. That's why this lets you roll your questioning dice as extra soak dice to resist it. So you can go ahead and roll that as extra soak. And if that had soaked it down to 0, we would be over with this conversation. You would have resisted. That's supposed to open a door to all kinds of weirdo debuffs in the game. It does also open the door that if you really don't want to be debuffed, you can just go ahead and lose a crap ton of hit points to not be debuffed. And I want to see how that's going to play out, because I understand that some players might just say, oh, I don't want to be immobilized. I'll burn all my soaks. It's like, well, okay, the next hit kills you. I don't know why you burned all your soaks. You could have just been immobilized. And
but now he could counterattack that hit instead of taking it.
Right. But it makes it an interesting choice to the player.
Mhm.
So now anytime you're hit by
Yeah.
anything hostile in the game, you can choose to burn through soaks and just flat out not care.
Mm.
But that's a choice that you make. And the fact that I think the levels gave the healer something more to do, because I was worried that back when it was only tapping things. So we raised the damage and gave people levels.
And now it's 1 for 1 instead of 1 for 2.
Yeah.
Well, it also gives you a choice. Like, do I think I'm only going to need 1 soak, or am I going to need to pump back up this other thing? Or do I think I'm going to reactivate my own soak through whatever means I need and just get the other stuff done? So it's a little bit more of a game there.
Yeah, I don't think that Dervish should really have sneaky soak. I think we should change that with something else.
Yeah, frenzy
Yeah, I
soak
was
seems.
wondering.
Yeah,
Okay.
we should probably change that with frenzy soak. Once again, the classes need to be retooled.
My
So-
last question on my list isn't even mechanical. Is the world of Vital Hearts Online a post-apocalyptic fantasy?
They're all Lord of the Rings is a post-apocalyptic fantasy.
No, I mean like a modern day, 100 years later, we're all medieval.
Not sure Lord of the Rings is at all.
Oh yeah,
It's gone through multiple ages, but
right, but if you read the history, like there were the 2 trees which were
I've
poisoned
tried.
by Ungoliant. Ungoliant is dead, and only Shelob and her degenerate spider children are left. The trees are gone. Sauron devastated the land. Mordor is a crap fest. Sauron's basically dead and lingering around, and that's why all the elves are saying this place sucks. We're going to the west.
Post-apocalypse meaning modern
for them,
post-apocalypse.
but not for like the hobbits and humans who see it as like their time.
Right. Well, hey,
It becomes a matter of perspective, I suppose.
if you're playing Fallout, the Wasteland's great if you're a super mutant.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's all be
so-
super.
I just mean that our adventure today took place in a desolate underground nuclear reactor, whatever. That's what I'm saying. Is the setting of Vital Hearts a post-apocalypse fantasy?
It is a post-war fantasy. There was a war between the history, the lore that's been revealed to you is that the founders of monadology banished the chaotic monsters below ground. But there's more bits in the history. So basically, something happened in the past that ravaged the landscape, and there are secrets that are left. And I don't want to get too spoilery about it. I wouldn't necessarily say post-apocalypse, because you guys live in a big shine. I mean, that's why I was compared to Lord of the Rings. You guys live in a shining city. The skybox of the glorious city that you live in looks great. All the buildings are white and steely and teal, and everything's shiny, and all the merchants sell brightly colored clothes in their shops and the cash shop. Yeah, so that's the same logic. Your world is great. Why would we call this a post-apocalypse if you're living in this great city underneath the sun?
Because you judge a post-apocalypse by the history, not by what you're currently living in. And the history that we just walked through says we had nuclear reactors at some point.
I didn't say nuclear reactors. I said cooling towers, because you can have cooling towers if it's not a nuclear reactor.
They were walking around with nails. I don't know.
I mean,
So-
you could always say like maybe the world has electricity because most electricity is done by like heating something else, so it spins a turbine, and the cooling power is to cool water.
It's done by monad energy, so it's we're going for
But monad energy apparently still has water cooling, so
it is going to be very. I mean, like this will start a big
spin
rant.
the monad turbine.